This is tip number 2, and I am Suzanne Lyons, and thank you so much for joining me on my vlog series. This one is on the importance of getting a mentor, and I am thrilled to have Heather with me. Remember last time I said that I was going to have Heather Hale, wonderful, very, very, very brilliant writer, producer, and director. Just finished directing, you're welcome, a movie last year, and if she hadn't learned enough, she decided to jump right in, crazy. Instead of running screaming in the opposite direction, she's got a whole slate of films now, one of which she's already financed and is starting pre-production this fall. Go figure. This is a brilliant woman who is up to something. And the reason that I've asked Heather to come and be with me today is because what today is about is who would make a good mentor. And I don't think, Heather, that we give enough thought to that. Mm-hmm. I think it's like, okay, I want to get a mentor, and then you just kind of go with that, I don't know what you go with it. But a lot of times what I hear from some of the students in Flash Forward is that they hadn't put thought into it. And I think that's important. Yeah. I really do. I think choosing your mentors is really important. And so Heather has got some great stuff to say about that. And I'm just going to hand it over to you, and let's just have a little talk on that whole thing.
I don't know if you know, but you're my mentor.
Well, thank you.
You may or may not know this, but I think a decade ago or whenever I started in the business, I took your Flash Forward almost straight out of the gate.
A while ago. Yeah.
I took your A-Team, I took Launching the Future, and I'm this organic plug, totally genuine, and then I've coached for you.
Yes, yeah.
And so looking at you as a speaker, a panelist, someone who's out there teaching as these classes and workshops, then I thought I really need to drag this woman into my life.
Got it.
And so I thought she's someone who has a good attitude, good personality, your stuff.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so I solicited you to participate in my mastermind group, which we'll talk about in a second. And my dad has a theory, and I love my dad, and he has all these great philosophies. And one of them is that 90% of the people out there are the people who will cut you off on the freeway and then flip you off. And those are the people that you do your very best to ignore, and they're the toxic, draining people that are just not worth your time.
Got it.
At the other end of the spectrum are the one percenters, which you are a one percenter in my life.
Thank you.
And those are the people that your life is better for, that they enrich your life and they enhance your life, and so you actively solicit relationships with them. And then the other 9%, you're trying to figure out which way they're going.
Got it.
Are you grooming them and cultivating them to be one percenters? Are you trying to let go and forgive them and just not have them be in your path that they're detracting or obstacle characters? So one of the things I do is every panel I go to, every book I read, I'm always looking for who's smarter than me, who knows this stuff better than me, who's better connected than me. And when I first started in the business, I was a mortgage banker, and then I was a writer, always a writer.
Right.
So I knew about 2,000 writers. Well, then I realized none of those writers are going to buy my screenplays.
Right.
So how do I diversify my sphere of influence or my portfolio of people, your web of relationships, basically?
Right.
I thought I need to. So before you know it, you know a bunch of actors, but I needed to know distributors. I needed to know investors. I needed to know producers who knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
So now I just keep looking at what are the pieces that are missing. Now, special effects coordinator, because if you're doing a low-budget film, that would be a visual effects supervisor, someone who would help me do this.
Right.
What are the pieces of the pie that I am lacking in my knowledge or my skill set, and how can I also give back? So I cherry pick, as you know, 11 people every year and create a mastermind group, and that becomes my advisory board.
Right. I've been part of that in the past. It's wonderful.
Yeah, and they become mentors to me. I mentor them.
Exactly.
And we all try to help each other. And that's kind of a formal structure.
That's a great idea. That's a really good idea.
Yeah, so that's one way of getting mentors. Yeah. Another way is the Hail Mary Pass, Shot in the Dark, which I did with Sherry Lansing.
Oh, really?
You've probably heard that story.
Oh, I forgot. That's cool.
And I would encourage people to, I make a hit list of the 10 people. And it could, maybe you have different hats. I'm a writer, director, producer. So maybe as a writer, Ivan Reitman's at the peak of top of my list. Or maybe Chris Nolan as a director, which, it's pie in the sky. Maybe it'll never happen, but what the heck? Sherry Lansing, who ran a studio, 20th Century Fox, Paramount. I shot in the dark and got through to her, got on the phone with her, and she was amazingly generous with me. So I encourage people to shoot for that pie in the sky person, but don't have a list of 10 pie in the sky people.
Oh, got it. Okay, good. This is good. Remember last week I talked about or on Tuesday I guess it was, your wish list A and then your B list kind of thing. it is, yeah, okay, very good. Continue.
So go ahead and don't let the people around you tell you you're reaching too far or you're out of your league. Go ahead and put that pie in the sky person, but then also pick some low-hanging fruit. You know, people you can actually get to. I went to a PGA conference recently on video games, and I took every single one of them out to lunch because I wanted this one mentoring me on social media games, this one mentoring me on how to get into electronic arts. You know, each one of them on how do I crack this nut that I'm not familiar with. And then in the middle, and maybe you don't know that this is this expert. Maybe you know as an actor, I need an agent at a boutique agency that reps lots of series regulars. So you may not know who it is. You know the type of person it is. Or you want to be a sports agent and you want to find who does branded entertainment for athletes. So you begin to know, I need a Fortune 500 company. I need an agency that has only 8 agents.
This is great. This is very cool.
So try to begin to kind of fragment your hit list into a pie chart of these are the skill sets I'm missing, or the tentacle outreach in my web of relationships of who I need, and this is a gap, and I need to build that.
And I notice sometimes too is who is the person who might have more time too. You know, maybe that person, maybe the senior VP of development, at the studio, for example, is going to be so crazed and so busy that maybe it's the story editor, 3 levels down, or the director of development as opposed to the senior VP of development. I've noticed that too, Heather. It's like sometimes that person, and they may be more willing because maybe they've been in your shoes, more recently than their boss has, or their boss's boss has. So sometimes they'd be more willing to, to really nurture you and help you, and also maybe have the time to do so.
And I would look at like what I call the bell curve of your career in Hollywood. The speakers, the authors, the people who are talking about the business, often, not always, are on the periphery. They're either on the forward, upward slant, getting in, learning it, cutting their teeth, or they're on the other side. You get a Christopher Nolan or a Jon Favreau, they are at the peak of their career.
Oh my God, and
they're so busy, and they work so hard to get there. Bless their hearts, they don't have a lot of time to help everyone else at the moment. They probably did over here, and they probably will again. So who's the fantastic writer who hasn't had a job in 10 years, who just knows Hollywood like the back of their hand? Or the up and coming, and as you say, a story editor, story analyst. Some of these creative execs are brilliant.
And they're still going to have their nose to the ground. I mean, they still know what's going on in the business.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? If they're, in fact, they might even know more than their boss and their boss's boss.
But they're not famous yet. They're not rich yet. They're still working hard. They have that work ethic, that passion. And they're looking to break people. They're looking to get their big break. So they might be more inclined to help you. Look at the agents, the hot assistants list.
Oh, that's interesting.
Keep looking for those opportunities. Another thing I do, I would encourage people to do this as a writer, director, actor, producer, whatever it is, your composer, fashion designer. Make a list of your 10 favorite films. I did it and I narrowed it down to 231. So anyway, your 10 however many films, but just your 10 favorite films, and then do a spreadsheet. Who was involved in that?
That's brilliant.
Who was the producer? Who was the director? Who was all of these people? And you may see a pattern, just like a stock market chart. And suddenly you see this person, Joe Blow, has the same sensibility that I do because he or she worked in a variety of different capacities. And you may see someone who was maybe a DP, associate producer. And what's the trajectory of their career going towards?
Oh, I had not thought of that, guys. I really hadn't. That is fantastic.
And just kind of look at it, because once you have the information, and it's your information.
This is great.
It's your favorites.
Oh my God.
And one of the things I tell my students is, make a list of your top 10 favorite films. And then what are the top 10 best films of all time? Well, they ought to be the same damn list, right?
Maybe some of them should definitely overlap.
Judging that list. So if that list is full of guilty pleasures, Raiders of the Lost Ark maybe is not a classic, or Sleepless in Seattle, but they may be your favorites. Shakespeare in Love, What were they?
Those are mine.
Mine too. Shawshank, and even The Prestige. What were the ones? The Groundhog Day.
Oh God, I've seen it probably 10 times.
And who worked on those things? And who is the right person for you that shares your value system, your sensibility.
Exactly.
Who would you just be honored to work with? Go after them.
That's brilliant. That is so brilliant. Nothing, as you were saying that too, what I thought of is sometimes think a little bit outside the box too. It's like, if you're an actor, I know your brain was automatically going to, maybe a senior actor or whatever, but maybe it's not. If you're dying to be on a TV series, maybe it's the supervising producer of that TV series. Maybe it's the writer of somebody totally different from the whole acting world. So put some thought into that too. It's not necessarily that agent or that senior actor or whatever. It could be a completely left center. So give some thought to that. And another thing that was you were talking reminded me, I know somebody one time wanted, I think it was Oliver Stone, this was years ago in Flash Forward, and they called, and I remember the assistant said, well, I'm sorry, he's on location for the next 6 months or whatever, but the assistant said, I got your email, or whatever it was at that time, probably a letter, or fax back then, and said, but I would love to be your mentor, and it was the assistant. And I remember the person on the phone, she almost went, oh, what do you mean, the assistant? No. And then she thought, the assistant to Oliver Stone, am I crazy? Right. And she said, yes, and out of the 120 people in that particular Flash Forward, that she had the best mentor. That mentor, opened doors for her, did way beyond the Call of Duty, beyond.
I do the same thing anytime as a writer, especially as you're trying to get up the ranks and through the ladder of the gatekeepers. If you send a project in to Jodie Foster's company or whoever's company, and the you call to follow up, just make sure they got it, and the assistant says, yeah, we got it, we're going to check it. It's your opportunity to say, are you going to read this?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I read everything. I'd love to take you to lunch and get your feedback on
this.
Great.
That's great.
That person rarely gets asked their opinion. Could be a receptionist, could be an assistant.
Yeah.
And they probably know exactly that culture, what they want, what they don't want, what they have in the pipeline, what they have emotional baggage to. That's another thing that I've learned a lot, is you think your project's getting shut down, and actually what you don't realize is they spent 10 years with some other package that had all sorts of emotional baggage, and they see another one like it coming, and it's got nothing to do with you or your package.
Sure, of course.
And so to have that kind of information and how to perhaps pitch the exact same project in a different way, or put a different spin or a light on it from some inside information.
They might make the perfect mentor, perfect person.
And that's the thing with mentors, you're looking for horror stories, you're looking for in the trenches stories, you're looking for advice. You're looking for them to hook you up and cut 2 years off the trajectory of your career because they have access.
Oh, it's fascinating. I remember in Flash Forward, we'd asked at the end years and years ago, we'd have a questionnaire, and what was the most important part of this whole program? Yeah. And you'd think, oh, well, gosh, I hope they're saying Suzanne and Heidi, right? Yeah. Or whatever. Or, what, number one every time? Number one, every single time, was my mentor.
Yeah.
That mentor had open door, even though that wasn't the mentor's job. The mentor's job was just basically to give advice.
Yeah.
But usually the relationship evolved so much so that they would be opening doors for people. I remember with Jane Campion, it was amazing what she did for one of my students. People would really go way above and beyond the call. It was quite something.
Well, and it
quite
also
amazing.
like when I finally tracked down, I sent a letter to Sherry Lansing, and she called me. Jeez. And so for the next 2 years, every conversation started with, well, when Sherry Lansing and I were on the phone, when Sherry called me, But I was on the phone with her, and she basically said, I can't be your mentor.
Right.
She said, if I were your mentor, I'd be a liar 365 days out of the year.
Wow.
But if I could mentor anyone, I would mentor you.
Oh, that is so nice.
And she said, what do you need?
Whoa.
What red carpets can I spit out? What doors can I open?
Wow.
And I said, wow, I have a romantic comedy that'd be great for Paramount.
Oh, my God.
And she's like, she said, Brad Kessel, she said, he's our romantic comedy go-to guy.
So she really opened doors.
Not only that, I said, Sherry, you're the busiest woman in Hollywood.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, she was the first woman to run a studio.
Know. Yeah.
She
amazing.
Yeah, Titanic, Braveheart, you name it.
My God.
She said, I said, you're the busiest woman in Hollywood. Put me through to your assistant and I'll get Brad's information. She goes, I'm going to put you through.
My God.
I'm on a 3-way.
It really is amazing. It really, really is. I've noticed this, well, my God, in Flash Forward we've had, thousands and thousands of students over the years. And I got to tell you, they have had millions, tons of mentors, and people have always gone way beyond the call. This is amazing. So and
that goes literally from reading a book the night before to cold calling a snail mailed letter to her calling the next day. So absolute stranger, pinnacle of our industry, one of the most powerful women in the world at that time, to calling me on the phone. I had a total stranger reading about her in a book 3 days later.
This is great. This is amazing.
So that's cold calling.
This is, so really, I mean, but have your list, and you maybe it's not going to be the case. Maybe it's the seventh person on the list, or whatever. But start to get your list ready. Start to look who would be a good mentor for you. And we're going to close off for today. And I know you've got the weekend, so really give some thought to that. Really give some serious thought. Who would be a great mentor for you personally? Look at what your goal is, and deciding on whatever your goal is should help you determine who would be a perfect person for helping you give some advice. So we're going to wrap
and I would
this
just
up.
say you don't have to have just one.
You
can have 2 or 3.
I've always got 2 or 3 going. Any learning curve, I've always got at least 2 or 3 per learning curve. I swear to God, Heather, it's true. So I just want to thank Heather Hale for joining me today.
Thank you for
thrilled.
having me.
Oh, you were wonderful.
You're my mentor.
Well, thank you. I've learned a lot today from you, and I'm sure if I've learned a lot, hopefully everybody out there is just like taking notes like crazy and looking forward to doing your homework this weekend. And that's it. You can't go to the beach this weekend. You're doing your homework.
Doing her homework.
Yeah, doing your homework. And I will see you all. Have a great weekend, and I will see you all on Tuesday for tip number 3.